Two toy companies, two Jokers, one deathmatch. In the right corner, it's the Arkham Asylum Joker from DC Direct. And in the left corner we have the same from McFarlane Toys. First up we have the packaging, and both of these companies have taken a radically different approach to one another. DC Direct have opted to really fully embrace the branding and the art style of the Arkham Asylum game. We have the Batman Arkham Asylum logo, we have artwork taken from the game itself as part of the backdrop, and all in all it looks very presentable and very colourful. Even the bubble packaging is moulded into the shape of Batman's cowl, keeping with the theme of the series, which is fantastic. All in all, this packaging is very displayable. You can happily put this on your shelf, stick it on your wall, and it's always going to look really good. McFarlane Toys, on the other hand, have opted to be consistent with the style of their other figures in their Multiverse series, and as such, the artistic style and identity of the actual game is lost here. The oblong packaging is a lot less creative, and overall its presentation is a little dull due to that big heavy black borders that they've employed all around. On the reverse, we can see that DC Direct have once again fully embraced the logo of the computer game itself, and it's got that front and centre there on the packaging, which looks very attractive, definitely has its own identity and its own feel, which is brilliant. And we can see they've opted to display all the other figures in this first wave of Arkham Asylum figures, and this looks like a pretty fun collection to build. On the other hand, we have the McFarlane Toys, who've opted for one large image taken from the computer game of the Joker, which is pretty good. It looks pretty presentable, it's not bad, it just looks a little bit bland. It feels like they could have done a little bit more with this. And at the bottom we have some other figures that have been released as part of this wave, but of course being the DC Multiverse, they're from all different characters, from all different timelines and appearances, which makes this feel a little inconsistent. All in all then, I think this is an easy victory for DC Direct. Next up, we have presentation. I think the first thing to note is just how much more colourful the DC Direct version is. Also, if we take a look at the sculpting overall in terms of the body shape, we can definitely see that DC Direct have certainly caught the nuance of the computer game version of this Joker, which is pretty fantastic. The McFarlane Toys, however, seems a little bit too tall and muscular to accurately represent this version of the Joker. If we take a closer look at the head sculpts, for example, we can see a lot of detail and effort and paint apps have gone into the DC Direct version. This looks uncannily accurate to the source material. Meanwhile, the McFarlane Toys, on the other hand, feels like a caricature. The key features are exaggerated, the hair is too long, and there's not enough detail in the sculpt and the lines in the face to really make this feel authentic. Looking at the body, we can see that the DC Direct version is certainly more colourful. They've really brought out that pinstripe in the costume, which I think is really nice. On the other hand, I have to say, I do think McFarlane Toys have done a really nice job of presenting the double-breasted buttons going down the chest there. They really stand out, and they've done a nice job of presenting the belt buckle and the tail of the shirt. However, DC Direct have added extra texture by adding a real gold chain to his pants, which is very, very effective and very welcome. It looks really, really good. McFarlane Toys, on the other hand, have opted to simply just sculpt this in and paint round it, and it doesn't look nearly as effective. Finally, looking at the shoes, we can see that once again DC Direct have taken a lot of effort to accurately sculpt these shoes and add a little bit of texture and detailing with the paint apps. They look dirty, scuffed. We can see that at the cuff of the trouser, and it looks really good and pretty authentic. Meanwhile, McFarlane Toys have just opted for a very clean approach, and there's not an awful lot of detailing. Although the sculpting is pretty nice, in terms of the paint apps, there's a lot left to be desired. Once again, this round goes to DC Direct. Next up, it's accessories, and DC Direct have opted to only provide one accessory for the Joker, and that is a minifigure in the shape of Scarface. Of course, this means we're essentially getting two characters from the computer game with the one figure, which is absolutely brilliant. What's more, this minifigure is articulated. There's a swivel at the head, there's a swivel at the shoulder, and there's a final swivel at the lower leg as well. But that's not the end, because at the back of the figure they've thought to create a little pouch where the Joker can slide his hand and therefore hold the dummy as if it was his own. This looks absolutely fantastic. This is a really novel approach and is taken directly from the computer game, so it's in spirit, which I think is absolutely fantastic and is a really cool, unexpected accessory. McFarlane Toys, on the other hand, have opted to take a slightly different approach. They've given a pair of Joker teeth, which are a cool item because of course they feature quite heavily in all the Arkham games, and they've given him his pistol, which is a cool touch. I'm glad to have this, but he also comes with a stand and a trading card as well of his character, again taken from the game itself, which is a pretty cool extra touch. And whilst none of these things on their own are particularly outstanding, I do think they've made a considerable effort here to sort of build the world. So this is a tricky one for me. I'm going to have to call a draw. Okay, final round, Articulation. Let's start with DC Direct. He does have a ball joint in the head, so he can spin his head all the way around, and he can nod up and down slightly. There's not a huge range of motion here, but it is there. Likewise, he has ball joints in the shoulders, but again, they only really come out to a certain degree, not all the way as you might hope. There's a single jointed elbow, and there is a swivel at the wrist only. There is no articulation when it comes to the chest, the abs, or the waist. He has another swivel at the hips. Of course, the legs do kick forwards and backwards, but they do not arc out to the sides. And there's another single joint at the knee, and then there's a swivel at the ankle. It does not hinge. McFarlane Toys, on the other hand, has a ball joint in the head, and we can see a lot greater range of motion here. The head can spin all the way around, and of course it can look up and down a really good distance. Likewise, there's no issues when it comes to the shoulder articulation either. There's actually two joints here to accommodate a really wide berth when it comes to those arms being flung out. There's also an upper bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, and there is a pin swivel at the wrist, allowing the wrist to rotate 360 degrees and hinge forwards and backwards as well. There's also waist articulation, so he can spin from side to side, but there's also ab articulation, allowing this figure to bend forwards and really far way back. There's a hinge at the hips, allowing the legs to kick out to the side, allowing them to kick forwards and a really healthy distance back as well. And there's another double joint at the knee, allowing those lower legs to kick all the way back there, which is fantastic. There's another pin swivel, this time at the ankle, allowing the foot to rotate from side to side, but also hinge forwards and backwards. And finally, just for good measure, there's also toe articulation, meaning McFarlane is the clear winner here. So there you have it, two Jokers have gone to war. On the one hand, we have the McFarlane Toys offering, which is very well articulated, allowing you to put him in a whole range of diverse poses and create very distinct different looks with him, but suffers a little bit when it comes to the paint apps and the accuracy of the sculpt. Meanwhile, we have this offering from DC Direct, which just seems to really fully encapture the spirit of the game. It really does a fantastic job of the presentation, both of the figure, the packaging, and just the wonderful paint apps and detailing in the sculpt is just phenomenal. But this all seemingly comes at the expense of articulation. This figure is very limited when it comes to posing. But winning in 2 rounds and drawing in a third, I have to say, DC Direct is the easy winner here. Articulation is a key component of how I judge a figure's success, but I have to say the absolute #1 priority has to be the sculpting. It has to look and feel authentic. It has to feel as if I have a mini version of that character come to life in plastic form, and I feel like the DC Direct version has done that. It's captured the spirit of the game and of the character, and they've done a fantastic job making this a really eye-catching action figure when he's put on display. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.